Preforeclosures podcast, doing another deal breakdown, or two actually today with Alex, trying to give you guys some actionable steps and show you the differences between some of the deals that we're closing actively in our business, going through one cash wholesale deal and then a huge Novation deal that we had. Both came from different marketing strategies. We're going to get into it, kind of show you the differences of why one was a wholesale, one was a Novation, and how the profit actually ended up working in all the numbers. This first one was pretty sweet because it came from AI, which everyone's the big buzzword right now. I'll show you the cool things and why you should be implementing it, but also how important it is to still get on the phone with people, the importance of building rapport, trust, and actually, making the phone calls, because AI is not going to replace you. It can't do everything. How did this lead start?
It was a code violation in Tarrant County in Fort Worth.
Break down how you found the code violation list and how you texted all those.
I just went on Fort Worth government website, found the list of code violations. It could be anything from tall grass to the cars in the driveway, unsound building structure, and then just downloaded that list, threw it in the CRM.
When you download the list, you got to skip trace it?
Yeah, put it through a deal machine.
Okay.
To skip trace it.
And then we have all their numbers. We added the CRM, and then we put it through the text bot.
Yep, on the REI Closers Hub CRM, and then AI kind of just followed up with it. It didn't. The contact didn't answer the first couple of times. It kept following up, and then finally some guy answers like, "Oh, I'm not selling that property, but I do have another property I need to sell," which was the house we ended up wholesaling. Kind of went back and forth with him over text, and then went out to the property. Peter closed it, got it under contract. We ended up wholesaling it. Had to do some affidavit of heirship documents and.
Which is affidavit of heirship, just clearing up title, because it was his dad's house, right? So Dad passed away. It's funny enough, I know you kind of briefly went through how the AI thing worked, but it was cool because I remember I just went through the text messages. It goes, "Hey, seller, you interested in selling this property this year? Or did you have any plans to sell it this year?" He said no. And he said, "Okay, what if the price felt right?" He said no again. And then he said, "Okay, reach out if anything changes." And we have it set to follow up the first time, just for an initial text 6 hours later, and said, just a reminder, if you do ever have any other houses to sell, reach out. And he goes, "I do have my dad's house that I want to sell, and it's on that same street. He passed away. I'm his son." So literally within 6 hours of him saying no twice, "Hey, do you have any plans to sell any other properties?" he literally shoots back, "I do have this house." It's on the same road.
Yeah.
And then it goes, my dad's house, he passed away. The bot said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And then it basically is trying to gather 4 qualifying factors. So it was, is the house vacant? Have any repairs or maintenance been done? How soon do you want to sell? And what price? And he was basically vacant, ASAP. It's a 2-1, no repairs, and I want 70 grand. And at that point, we tried to book a call, and it didn't. He just said, "I'm available now," so it triggered us to speak, which is cool. So we just get a notification that, "Hey, call this guy," and then that's whenever, obviously at that point, AI is not going to close a deal for you. You got to get on the phone. Funny enough, we ended up going out to this guy's house.
Yeah.
So he was an older dude, right? He wanted to, to work in person. He wanted us to see the house, which the house is a wreck. So it still actually required us to go out there. But nothing had to happen for the initial, qualifying, and AI did the follow-up pretty much for us. How did this house look, though? Because I also want to get into why this was a cash wholesale deal and the money we made on it versus the next deal we're going to get into, which is a much bigger deal, but we were able to utilize a different exit strategy with Novation. So, and what was the profit on this deal?
I mean, it was a complete wreck. I can't remember when it was built, but it was pre-1950s. I think it was the 40s. Just siding house, not brick, completely destroyed. I mean, it's quite honestly just a teardown. Mm-hmm. So the price that we got it at was probably a little bit high, but that was the what we negotiated it down to. They were originally asking for 70, ended up getting it at 55, and we sold it to someone at 60. So it was a $5,000 assignment, which it's not huge, but for a house that probably should be torn down, not bad. Mm-hmm. But I mean, complete wreck. Nothing was updated. There's trash in it. I mean, it looked like a haunted hoarder house, essentially.
And he wanted to sell it ASAP.
Yeah.
So, and his dad passed away. So how many heirs were there?
I think there were 3. So there's 3 siblings, and then they had to have a stepmom or something like that sign, and then her 2 kids were supposed to get money, which they did. So there's a lot of moving pieces there.
Which the title company ultimately figures out. We have to help getting some documents to the kids, but they get it cleared up. And the biggest thing is not even a huge assignment fee. Honestly, one of the smaller assignment fees that we ever have done. Obviously, there's been a couple around that size, but he needed to sell it quickly. the house was completely a wreck. There's no other way this dude could have sold it, right? He didn't want to wait to put it on the market. It wasn't in the condition to put it on the market. He didn't want to pay for an agent. So it was going to go to an investor either way, which is why it needed to be a cash wholesale deal. There isn't really another, exit strategy.
It had actually gone to another investor. They had it under contract with some wholesaler that couldn't figure out, I would assume, how to do the affidavit of heirship stuff or actually get a deal like all the way through the finish line. It's not necessarily overly difficult to get something under contract, but to actually get it closed in. The buyer that we ended up selling it to had it under contract with the previous wholesaler. So they were already scheduled to buy this. Previous wholesaler didn't get the job done. We sold it to them.
Wow.
Got it closed.
Sometimes title companies don't help you. That's why you work with an investor-friendly title company. But a lot of times it's just problem solving. Like we reach out to the heirs. Who is it that needs to fill out these documents? And then say, okay, who's splitting these funds? You just got to problem solve a little bit to actually get it across the finish line. And funny enough, we're the ones that ended up making money on it because the other wholesaler pretty much gave up on it, right?
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for them, but I would imagine something like that.
Yeah, who knows? That AI puts calls onto our calendar, tells us whenever someone's available to speak now. Very good to just not do those, like people call it minimum wage activity or non-money making activities. Stop spending your time so much on underwriting or on talking, like texting all these leads back and forth when you can have things that might be automated and you want to talk to sellers as much as possible on the phone or in person. So sweet deal, $5,000 wholesale, nothing crazy, but this next one was a $51,000 profit on a Novation deal, and I'm going to show you why we pivoted to a Novation, how that works, why that lead, was good for the exit strategy versus, one like the previous one we talked about that pretty much couldn't work as a Novation because, the house was a wreck. No one was going to finance that. They needed to sell it ASAP, so there wasn't really time to put it on the market or do anything like that. This next deal was way bigger profit. Obviously, it came from a different lead source and was quite a bit different situation. It was a $51,000 profit, and we're going to show why we pivoted to Novation, how that worked. It came from inbound ads, so it was actually a Google ad, I believe, right before we pivoted to Facebook. Yeah, this one came in just like any other lead. I think it was actually Jackson that closed it. Where was this house?
It was in Cleveland, Texas, so northeast of Houston.
Okay. So not a big town, right?
No.
But I want to say it was like an acre property. So 2 acre property, pretty standard house, brick.
Yeah, brick, metal roof. It was nice. Good bones.
Yeah, but it's not very updated. And again, in Cleveland, Texas, every now and then you start turning on inbound ads, right? These are very qualified leads. We want to call them within really 30 seconds to 2 minutes. These people are inquiring either on Google or maybe they clicked on a Facebook ad. They want to sell their house quick, and we want to get on the phone with them before that just sits dry, right? So calling them quick is huge, but also sometimes things come up. You say Cleveland, Texas, and naturally in my head sometimes this is middle of nowhere, it's maybe not going to be a good lead, there's no buyers, blah, blah, blah. But it's crazy because this turns into a $51,000 deal. But this house, 2 acres, I think it was 1,800 square feet, 1,900, brick house. But pretty standard home, but on 2 acres in a town outside of Houston. And nothing's really wrong with the house. It has decent bones. It just hasn't been upgraded for, how long did they live there?
I don't know. It wasn't updated. It was definitely not super clean.
Yeah.
Had to de-junk it.
Yeah. So but all the majors work. So when I'm talking to a seller and not like the other one that was completely trashed. This guy's got a metal roof that's fine. The AC's working. The plumbing's all right. The foundation's not cracking. Right. All those major things are all right and they're working. So technically, as long as the house isn't completely trashed, someone could move in there. It could be quote unquote rented or cleaned up a little bit and someone could move in there as a homestead. So when we're talking this lead, he wants to sell it, they want to relocate, but he's not the motivated the other guy that needed to get rid of it ASAP and his family member died, right? Yeah. They just have this house paid off. They know it needs some work, right? There's cosmetic things that got to be done. There was maybe a plumbing clean out, not a whole plumbing thing that needed to be done, but stuff that he didn't want to do to sell it. And he just saw, I want to sell my house, who can buy it? And really we just get to the numbers when we're running comps out there in Cleveland, Texas. We find what were some of them
all over the place.
Yeah.
There was some at 400, there was some at 150. There wasn't really comps.
Yeah, I think we found one comp that sold, and it sold at 225 to 230, and it was in pretty good shape. 1 to 2 acre property, pretty comparable, and wasn't even that updated. So I was like, okay, if this one sold at 220, that's our one comp, then we could probably list this thing at 200 as is and sell it. So we look at the ARV, we're running our numbers. A cash offer typically for a wholesale is going to be 70% of the ARV minus repairs, but this guy doesn't accept our our super low cash offer, and we're not very confident that there's going to be a bunch of cash buyers for a fix and flip house in Cleveland, Texas. But if the ARV is 225, 0.7 minus probably 50 grand, our cash number might be at like 105.
Yeah, I think we offered like 110.
Yeah. So our first offer cash to do a standard wholesale, just assign it to a cash buyer, was 110. This seller said, that's too low. Just probably not going to be able to take that. And that's where we pivoted to the Novation. And a lot of people hear this. The problem with a lot of people is they either use the Novation as a crutch and don't stand strong on a cash offer a lot of times, or they don't have the systems and processes to actually like get the Novation deal across the finish line because they don't really follow the right steps. But I guess, so when I say someone uses like a Novation as a crutch, we saw this a lot. Jackson actually closed this deal and it's a huge profit. But when he first started running ads, he had that problem where it was like, oh, I can get someone, instead of giving everyone my low cash offer, I'm just going to have everyone a Novation offer because I can, do this pitch, get them to agree to put it on the market, bring in a retail buyer, and give everyone a higher price. So like when I'm pitching a quote unquote Novation, what it means is I'm going to bring in a retail buyer for them, but I'm going to do the necessary steps needed to basically list it, clean up the property a little bit, like do minor things. If they request, inspections, all this stuff you need, right? That they don't want to do, but it allows me to tell the seller, hey, I can give you a higher price. So a lot of people just, use that to be like, oh, like, yeah, my cash offer is going to be this, but we have this other program, I can get you this. It's like, well, yeah, you just gave up on the low cash offer. The power of a Novation is anchoring the cash offer low. And then if that fails, giving them the absolute win-win scenario that you don't know if they're going to qualify for. You're leaving it as like a carrot out. Let's see if you can qualify for this. So then whenever they do, boom, they take it, and there's no questions asked. Basically, it's like there should be no reason they say no to this Novation offer because my cash offer they were debating to take. So hopefully that makes sense. But 110 cash offer, guy says no, right? We hold strong on that. Okay, our underwriters might have another program for you. Obviously, we're pretty tight on that number, so it may not be a good fit. But given the condition of what you said, it sounds like it could fit for another program. If we were able to get to a higher number, are you guys flexible on that price? Basically, him saying, yes, we're flexible. We might be able to meet in the middle. He wanted probably, I don't remember what he wanted. Was it probably like 150, 160?
Roughly. You got it at 130, so.
Yeah. So he declines the cash offer, and we end up pivoting to a Novation offer, which just means if you give us more time to market the property to one of our retail buyers and access to the house to do some walkthroughs, we're going to bring in the family that's going to live there. They're probably going to want the house clean. They're probably going to have some inspections to request, maybe some things to fix, and they're going to have to get financed. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but we can get you a higher number. It works just like a cash offer. It's going to take 60 to 90 days instead of the 2 to 3 weeks that our cash offer was. And they say, cool, okay, sweet, let me see if we can get qualified. We come back with the 130, he takes it, he agrees, lets us list it on the market for him. We listed at 179, and within like 2 days, I guess a 2-acre property in this town, which you can tell when there's low inventory, there's not many houses listed. People want land and the house is in decent shape. We had 30 people call us.
Oh yeah, immediately, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of calls. We had offers coming in over the list price. We ended up getting under contract at 190. There were some concessions.
It was 195.
195?
Yeah, they came back with some concessions, and I think the final sales price ended up being 187.5, I want to say.
Right, so after closing costs and commissions, we paid the buyer, agent, realtor. We had it on a flat fee service, so about 5% we lost in closing cost commissions minus their concessions, which they already, we already factored in. So at the end of the day, we eat that cost, we take away our fee, they get their 130. They didn't have to do anything. We cleaned up the property for them. We had to negotiate some concessions, pay for a little bit of money for, pictures, clean up for them. It was done within probably 30.
It was by the time they actually got out of the house, it ended up being like a 45-day process.
45 days. Yeah. Right. So it sold quickly on the market. They got the cash number that they agreed to at the beginning. We basically just did the necessary steps to bring in a family. And instead of them getting a low $110,000 offer that probably wouldn't be able to find an investor to even flip it necessarily, we just put it on the market with their authorization and, bring in a family and help them the steps needed to actually have a family that's going to live there and get financed. Pretty crazy deal though.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the, I would say, easier novations we've done, just because there was so much interest. It was nice to have a cash offer, not have to worry about, going through FHA inspections, everything like that. The sellers were, they were already into a new house, so they didn't really care how long it took. They were super psyched to get paid that quickly.
Which is, I think, the difference when you talk to, like, if I would have known about novations when I first started, I probably would have made an extra $100,000, because there was deals you're like, oh man, like, this house is outdated, everything's fine. It's one of those ones where you think, oh, it could be a wholesale. Like, I could just buy this now and put it on the market and it would sell. But like, I didn't know how to negotiate a novation.
Right.
So it was like, if I can get, a seller they really want to sell, they don't want to deal with it, but they're not motivated enough to just take this 70, 60% cash offer. But I can just make this a seamless process for them, have the concierge service, bring in an actual family to buy it. This one just ended up being easier because the buyer was cash, but I think it was still someone that was going to live there. It's just funny enough, they didn't have to get financing.
Yeah.
The main difference between these two deals is, one, the motivation. This guy with the rundown house had to sell it quickly. The house was a wreck, right? There's no one that could have lived there. An investor had to buy it. So, us agreeing to put it on the market is just, again, marketing it only to investors. Innovation is good because if everything's in good condition, the person that's going to pay the most amount of money for a house is not an investor, it's the person that's going to live in the house. So it's got to be in decent enough condition, and the seller's got to be willing to have some time and access to let you sell it. If you guys have more questions, make sure to check out our YouTube, subscribe to REI Closures, follow me on Instagram. We post a ton of our content as well as the day-to-day at benjensen.rei. You can check out the link in the description to everything we talked about and joining our community, and we will see you guys on the next episode.